Hey everyone, 1, 2, 3. All right, sound is good. So, welcome in. We're going back to being live on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Today, we are going to be talking about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial that has now come to an end. We're going to talk about Netflix's comments throwing Martin Scorsese and the Irishman under the bus for some reason. Tarantino is starting a podcast, and Louis C.K. is now coming out with a movie. We'll also talk about things like The Offer, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and Top Gun 2, or Top Gun Maverick, sorry. So, starting with the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, I did not watch all of it. I don't know if there's anyone out there that actually did watch all of it. I can't imagine that there was anyone that actually did that. There's something like 70 hours, if you want to go through everything, of content of them just deliberating, going back and forth and everything. But essentially, Johnny Depp won. So if you're not familiar with kind of what that whole thing was, apparently what happened, Amber Heard went to the ACLU, the once very heralded ACLU, and pledged something like 3 or 4, it was millions of dollars. She did not pay them, but what they did is they wrote an article for her that was then published under her name in the Washington Post, where she alleged that she was a survivor of abuse and pretty much doing everything to point the news at Johnny Depp without actually saying Johnny Depp's name. So she never paid the ACLU. That came out in the trial, even though she said that she would, and that she wasn't actually in any legal battles until like a year after she made that pledge. And she had the money just kind of sitting in her account. So, and then Elon Musk actually had to pay some of the money for her. So what the trial ended up showing was that on 3 counts of defamation, Amber Heard, because the first of all, the standard of defamation, the standard of being sued for this type of a trial, which essentially is dealing with the First Amendment, is so huge. You have got to show beyond a shadow of a doubt with a jury that you intentionally made things up with the intention of hurting someone in some way, shape, or form. And you have to, and Johnny Depp's team did that. Like, clearly they had the millions of dollars of resources to pose this fight, and they did it, and they won. After things like the Kate Moss debacle, her lying about the makeup, where the makeup company actually had to come out and be like, that we didn't make that makeup during the time that you were married to that guy, so there's no way that you could have used the makeup that you're holding up in court, saying, this is what I used. This covered everything up. Her own makeup artist coming up, making statements about bruises that were not matching up, saying her acting teacher that then said Amber Heard, always had a difficult time producing tears whenever she was acting a scene that required her to cry. And then she's unable to cry whenever she's trying to cry. And it's just, there's so much stuff that is not making sense. The fact that her own side submitted audio of her admitting to starting and perpetuating physical altercations with Johnny Depp, just not great. I would say that there are many times her side is very, very laughable. So I talked about this a little bit earlier this week. Essentially, what is important from this? Are they going to have careers after this? There were a few, not executives, but there were a few producers that came out and said that right now Johnny Depp is incredibly bankable as a star. Amber Heard is so unbankable. No one seems to like her. There is not a lot of sympathy for her. There's just a lot of, I would just say, crazy people that seem to side with her. And say what you want about the two of them. They both don't seem like great people. But I feel like there's a sincerity to where Johnny Depp is coming from. And where this is going to land, I think the biggest thing is the whole Me Too thing. I don't know if that's even really a part of the conversation. I mean, this pretty much proves that men and women are both trash, and women have the capability to lie just as much as men do. And, there are people out there like Amber Heard who are going to lie and if right now the thing that makes you famous and gets public sympathy and gets you clicks is that you're a survivor, then yeah, there are going to be people out there that want to take advantage of that, and those people are shitty. And I think it's good to call those types of people out. They need to be called out. If you don't call them out, then that undermines everything. So I think it's a good thing that she is being called out. She seems like a very slimy person. I would think that all celebrities are slimy, but she in particular seems like a very predatory, slimy person. And I think it's good if she is kind of brushed off to the side. It was funny. this whole trial has been incredibly funny. It's been dark, but I mean, if you like dark humor, they're millionaires. Although I guess Amber Heard is now an anti-millionaire. Doesn't she have like, I think she's now worth, minus $8 million because she doesn't, they said she doesn't have the money to pay this. So they are going to appeal it. That's another thing. But also that's going to take months. And really, as far as the public's concerned, I think the trial's done. People were siding with Johnny Depp. I just let's get it over with. See you later, Amber Heard. You don't really matter that much. Well, actually, there were a few. I guess the interesting thing is the media's response to this, because they are so obsessed with, I think, playing the Me Too thing. They want the Me Too thing to kind of it's constantly oh, we must believe her and all this stuff, which is, I think, pretty toxic. Anyone that's lying about this type of thing, I think, is making things very toxic. So here, actually, I'm going to check because there's no one in right now. Here, let's check something. Okay, cool. All right, so looking at what the media is actually saying about this, there are a few articles in Intelligencer where they're saying things like the mainstream media lost the Depp Heard trial and the lifestyle influencers turned court correspondents won. There's so many articles out there talking about how it is unfair that people online took control and they kind of made the narrative something about Amber Heard losing and how she was the vicious one. You can tell it's kind of like the meme of the woman on, I think it was MSNBC, where she said something about online commentators, and she said they are taking control of what people believe and what they think, and that is our job. And it was just it was funny and it was cringe. But this feels like that same type of thing where it's people online are framing conversations in ways that we don't seem to be able to, and that's a problem. And it does seem like there's always going to be some external source that kind of shapes the angle that everyone's taking. I think this is an example of the internet, everyday people kind of collectively deciding, well, Johnny Depp seems the more sincere one, so we're going to go with him. I think that's another interesting side of it. Go to Variety, IndieWire, Washington Post, New York Times, any of them, even Fox News every now and then, they are all running these articles of why we need to believe Amber Heard, why Amber Heard's story is ringing out, even if she's wrong. All this stuff that's it doesn't really take something like Believe All Women to the darkest conclusion, and it's saying that someone can literally lie and they need to still be protected undercover, as opposed to saying, well, I mean, the Me Too movement is great for exposing people like Harvey Weinstein, and people like, who was the other one, Kevin Spacey. But I mean, if you just kind of give it a carte blanche type thing, then you're going to be screwing over. People that need to be given a fair shot to kind of voice what they think is going on here. You can't just have someone like Amber Heard come in and have all this evidence show, oh, well, okay, she was doing it to boost her star, and then just let that go. That just seems absolutely ridiculous. So I'm going to read this from People Magazine. One interesting side of this is, the title of this article is, What Happens If Amber Heard Cannot Pay the $10.35 million in damages owes to Johnny Depp? So let's scroll down here. So it says it'll be up to the parties, but once the judgment is entered on June 24th, I wonder if the attorneys are going to start negotiating the payment, says one of the lawyers. Ben Chu said in his closing arguments that Johnny Depp was not seeking punishment for Amber Heard monetarily, but that he imagines they're going to try and settle it. And you'll see a PR statement that they are not seeking to enforce the judgment. If they do want to enforce the judgment, she then continues, that starts a whole separate process in court of potentially attaching properties, setting up ways for it to be paid. I imagine, and if I'm Team Depp, that this is what I would do. They'd look at getting an injunction to stop Amber Heard from repeating statements that the jury found were defamatory, and then stipulating that the payments won't be made and there won't be any judgment outstanding. If he's not interested in the money, I think he's more interested in her not repeating these allegations. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's the thing that it caught most people's attention for Johnny Depp with all of this. It was not I don't even think it was so much. And this kind of gets more into like, why in the world did it catch everyone by storm? Like everyone has been obsessed with this. Like whenever the whenever the verdict was being announced, it was like 3.5 million people on just one YouTube account were watching that stream. It was like a fraction of America was watching when that verdict was being read out. Like, what is it exactly that was kind of catching everyone's attention? I think it was that Johnny Depp was technically seeking a large amount of money, and he was clearly not wanting the money. That wasn't the thing he was there for. He still got money. We know that he is not broke. He's got, he's Johnny Depp. He's got a lot of financial ties to property, so he's going to be okay. But it really felt like there was something in this that was someone saying, I need for my name to be cleared. I'm going to spend all this money because I need for my name to be cleared. And I think there's something where I think people are pretty good at detecting bullshit. I don't think you can get it right 100%, but I think that people were catching that the angles that people were coming at with this case. Amber Heard was just smelling a lot more like bullshit than Johnny Depp was. Johnny Depp, I don't think from some of the stories I heard, I don't think I would enjoy being in the company of Johnny Depp for a month. He seems like someone who is a little egomaniacal. I would absolutely hate it if, my partner was the type of person who I'm with them for a week and, they're paying regular attention and then they just ghost you for 3 weeks. Like imagine being married to someone like that. It'd be excruciating. He seems incredibly arrogant. He seems very self-involved. He's clearly got a huge problem with substance abuse in a way that it might become dangerous. I'm just saying I wouldn't want to necessarily be alone with him. I'm looking at these comments here. We're going to leave them alone. Whoever naked-HD is, I don't think they're being honest here. So I think that all of that being said, while it is clear that Johnny Depp is not, I would say, a good person, everything surrounding this case we actually have to listen to what they're being said. We can't just believe Amber Heard. We have to actually listen to what she's saying and hear if it is true or not. And we're not talking about someone like, remember how Ellen kind of is canceled because she's got this like nice person persona, and then the minute that you realize that's not who she is, everything comes crumbling down. Everyone knows that Johnny Depp is a very problematic person. So he gets up there, and I hate that word problematic. He's a very troubled, damaged person. He gets up on the stand. He kind of bears everything out in a way that seems like he's not bullshitting completely. Amber Heard gets up there, seems like she's bullshitting completely, and you can tell that she's very much obsessed with how she's viewed. And everything that's coming out from other executives, from the ACLU, from people she's worked with, is essentially saying she just has like an agenda here. And everyone's got an agenda. Clearly, Johnny Depp has an agenda. But Johnny Depp's agenda seems to be much more like, I'm a piece of shit, and I can't have a lie being circulated like this about me. It's got to go away. I think no one is interested in the angle of, well, is he going to get his money? Is he going to get his money? What truly was it that took place on these? I think it's just I think everyone is desperate in a conversation like this of let's hear both sides and let's just all make our own decisions in terms of who we believe, because we're never going to know exactly what went down. And this is the first time that people are actually able to watch a situation like this and be like, okay, what's actually going on? Who do we actually believe? And I think that there's a little bit of catharsis in terms of someone like Johnny Depp end up walking away and winning. So I think that's pretty much everything there is to say about it. So let's move on. Well, actually, let's see what's going on in the comments. To Hobbit, hello, how's it going? Good to see you. Brian says they could waive payment in exchange for her agreeing not to appeal or talk about the case publicly. I could definitely see them going. I could see that definitely happening because I just don't think Johnny Depp is interested in the money. I don't think on one side he needs it. On the other side, like he doesn't seem like one of those people that's obsessed with the fame or the greed or anything like that. Cody says Johnny feels genuine. Amber did not. Simple. Yeah, it did. And someone like Amber, like just in terms of vibes, it felt like Amber was not genuine at all. She was just okay. She just didn't feel genuine at all in the expression. Felt very cringe when she was talking. First of all, the cocaine bump that it looked like she took at one point, the fact that she kept looking over to the jury all the time, kind of like holding for photos. It's like, this is just fame obsessed. This is annoying. But then whenever you have actual facts not adding up, like the makeup company came out and said, we never made that makeup that you're literally holding up in the court when you were married to Johnny Depp. You have Kate Moss showing up being like, yeah, I heard what she said about me. That never happened. Johnny was great to me. We had a great relationship. It's just all this is like, oh, this is so like, if she wins, it's just, it feels like the villain winning. And now we're done. And so no one wants to, I think everyone is done with it. And it felt like Amber was the villain. Johnny was the damaged, not so much of a villain. Brian says Amber could also declare bankruptcy and get out of the 10 million judgment, the 350,000 punitive damages you can't bankrupt out of. Oh, wow. So she's on the hook for sure. And she still owes the ACLU that money that she at least pledged. I still cannot believe that she did that and then had Elon. It would have been so cool if Elon Musk had got pulled into this right at the height of like the Twitter shit. Like Elon Musk then has to come in. It would have been like the zeitgeist of the zeitgeist, like everyone on the trial. It was weird that the trial kind of amassed that level of attention. Okay, we're at 16 minutes now. I feel like we might even need to move on. I can't talk about Johnny Depp the entire time, but it is awesome. So let's move on to the Netflix Scorsese drama. You might have seen this on Twitter. They were essentially, Netflix has gotten into a lot of monetary problems recently, financial problems. They said that obviously they've lost a ton of subscribers. Netflix earlier this year, after the first quarter, showed that they lost something like what was it? They lost 200,000 subscribers and predicted that by the end of the third quarter, I believe it was, they're going to end up losing 2 million subscribers. So they're not doing well. Essentially, that is because everyone has caught up in terms of you have options with HBO Max, you've got Disney Plus, you've got Peacock, you've got so many options that what most people seem to be doing, and honestly, I've been doing it too. You just take your money where the shows are that you want to watch. Right now, most of what I'm watching, and I'll talk about The Offer later in today's show, The Offer on Paramount Plus. I'm not a fan of most of the stuff on there, so I'm gonna watch The Offer, maybe see what else is on there. When that's done, I'm probably gonna go to HBO Max. I need to finish what is the sci-fi show that I was Raised by Wolves. So I'll go there and finish that off. And it's just, you're just going to go where is needed. So, and I honestly, after Ozark, I stopped with Netflix. So I don't have Netflix right now. There's just nothing on there. Like, I don't want to pay the $15 a month to be watching Netflix or to have Netflix when I'm not watching it. So Netflix's solution, they're essentially saying they're going to start putting out less content and going the HBO route, which is we're going to make great stuff, but we're going to make it much, much slower. And whenever talking about this, when announcing kind of rolling out what their strategy is going to be, they said that they're going to stop working on vanity projects like The Irishman. And The Irishman was literally the only example that they gave of a vanity project. Now, if you want to give, I think, first of all, I think that's really fucking unfair. It's The Irishman is not a vanity project. Like, the vanity project, I think, is things like Darren Aronofsky's Noah. Something that you can, when you go and you see it, there's a very strong vision, but there's nothing engaging about it. It feels overly indulgent. Well, I guess that's redundant. It feels indulgent. You just feel like it's wasting your time and you're almost watching someone jerk off. Like, that's what the movie feels like. And yes, The Irishman is a very long movie. But I think that The Irishman is a very, I think it'll be seen as a milestone. Now I think it'll be seen more as the time that Netflix had was ahead of the game. They had more money and more attention. They knew what to do with, and they ended up attracting attention by writing blank checks to people like David Fincher, to Martin Scorsese, to the Coen brothers. And sometimes, like, I did not like Mank. I didn't really like The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. But I think that The Irishman was a rare example of something really cool happening. Very expensive movie getting made by someone who could not get the money together to make that movie. It was something like $100 million. And it might not have succeeded with everyone, but I think it's a very high quality movie. I think that even if you just look objectively at how the story is told, the type of story it's trying to tell, and especially in the progression of his career, but even in the progression of just kind of mafia movies, like Mafia movies don't really get made that much anymore. There is not really that much more to say. I'm sure there's more Mafia movies that'll come out and there's more angles to see in Mafia movies. But right now, I think the best thing for Scorsese to do, but even if you're not interested in Scorsese, to take a story of someone in the mafia and tell the whole story as really an allegory of death, loneliness, dying alone, what the fear of that actually looks like, being in your last days and realizing there's no one else around, like what it means to live a good life by showing what it means to have lived a terrible life, a dark life. I think it's a great story to tell. I think it was a story that not only Scorsese needed to tell, but one that fit within just the genre of mafia movies, especially Italian American mafia movies. So to have, there's something with Netflix. They just don't seem. I think they got a great idea. I mean, and they're still the kings of this. They're still the kings of streaming. But if there's going to be a downfall, I think it's that they got ahead by being the first at the game, but don't necessarily know where the audience is or what the audience needs. I think they have data that is so good at entertaining people. They're great when it comes to kind of giving you exactly what you want. Like Stranger Things, it feels like it hits those beats. Ozark felt like it hit beats a lot of times, but I don't think they're great at really bringing things to a close, like delivering in the way that HBO does. HBO is constantly at the forefront of the conversation of great stories. Like Succession is going to come to an end here very soon, but I have no doubt that within the next year and a half, HBO Max is going to be back on top in terms of dominating the conversation. Netflix last year, the thing that they came out with was really Squid Game. And that was something that they acquired. They would have already made. They were not developing that. Netflix goes by a very just kind of throw everything at the wall and see what happens. And I don't think that's working anymore. Yeah, Cody says HBO Max is his favorite. I completely agree. That is mine. I don't see myself. I don't see myself taking that out of rotation of constantly, because there's either something I want to watch that's new, or there's something that is just fantastic that is always on HBO Max because they've got the Warner Brothers library. So they're going back almost 100 years now in content. It's so we'll see if Netflix is good at that, at kind of scaling back on the amount of content, and bringing out more content that just connects and finds an audience. But like right now, Netflix is about to come out with, and if you're watching this right now, tell me what you think. Have you seen a trailer to The Gray Man? This is the new movie that's coming out with Netflix with Ryan Gosling. It's a $200 million movie. Knives Out. They're coming out with Knives Out. They've got like 2 Knives Out movies. And I don't know if that is what people. Knives Out was great. Knives Out was fun. It was cool. I don't know if that is really something that's going to connect in a way that's going to pull everyone in. That's going to make, Netflix is just teetering in terms of, are they going to be an app that people constantly pay for all the time? I think this year is proving that that's not true. Yes, they're still ahead, but if there's going to be a downfall, then I think the downfall is going to be that they don't dominate the conversation. They don't connect with a large audience in a way that even people like Disney does. All Disney needs to do is put one star, and I'll talk about Star Wars later. All Disney needs to do is put out one Star Wars thing, and they capture like the minds of multiple generations. That's just, they made a good purchase there. Netflix, they have everything at their, they have all the tools to be great, and maybe they will evolve and be great. But right now it's tricky ground. If they make it out of it, I think right now will be seen as the time that they didn't really know what they were doing. It'd be great if they come out of that, and that price hike that they did, they need to stop with the price hikes. That's the other thing that kind of worries me, thinking that they might not actually, they're experimenting with live streaming right now. They've put their foot firmly in the sand saying they don't want to do sports, with I think is the stupidest thing in the world. They're wanting to do gaming instead, which if they pull it off, then great. But to not even want sports in the conversation, like Apple TV has not even, to say a fraction kind of overestimates how many subscribers they have. Apple has so few subscribers, but investing in sports has the potential to kind of blast them up to where the field that Netflix is playing, and Amazon is doing a great job. I think they're the dark horse in terms of the streaming services that people really need to pay attention to. They grandfather everyone from Prime in. They have sports on there. It's not that expensive. They're coming out with Lord of the Rings soon, which we'll see how that goes. That's really their big play. But people like HBO Max and really people like Disney and Amazon and Apple especially, they don't need to. Apple TV is like a sandbox for Apple. They lose money on the streaming service, but they're like one of the most profitable companies in the world. They don't need Apple TV to succeed for decades. They don't ever need Apple TV to succeed, and they'll still be fine. They just got an Oscar. Like, they're playing the long game. Warner Brothers, they're very well established with studio content. Their library is fantastic, so they could just keep their streaming service up, and they're going to make a ton of money. They keep putting out great content. They are known as the brand of great content, so they'll be fine. You've got Disney as well. The content library is vast, very diverse with different types of stories. With the kids, like, you just put Disney Plus on for the kids. Like, that's all. Like, that's enough to keep people on that subscription. But Netflix doesn't. Like, Netflix was just, we can stream. Like, they just got there first. So they need to find an identity. That's all I'll say about it. They need to find an identity that's going to actually stick. They don't have one right now, I don't think. Some comments here. Charlotte Ferris, I watched it a few nights ago after friends urged me to cross it off my list. I'm glad it got made. I appreciated it. Cody says, I love the Lakeland titled troll account. I don't even know what that. Oh, is that what it is? That's funny if true. Never watched Squid Game. It is very Netflix in terms of, like, thinking back on it now. It was fun. Like, it's very fun while watching. Very fun while watching. But in terms of looking back on it, there's not a lot of substance there. It's one of those things I hate when you watch, like, YouTube analysis or, PhDs in film criticism. They take any movie, like, tell me about Squid Game, tell me about There Will Be Blood, tell me about any movie. The analysis always goes as deep as capitalism is the worst. It's just the worst. Like, that is all. And, like, Squid Games kind of has that about it. It's like, what is it about? It's about capitalism and how it sucks ass. Like, it's annoying. I just get annoyed whenever, and you can tell that that's all Squid Game is going for. So it's fine. I just feel like I hate when people act like they've got, a deep message going on when it's like, oh, surprise, surprise, you don't like capitalism. That's very deep. No one is talking about that. Okay, next. I think this is kind of the coolest story of the week. So, and I've thought this for a while. Tarantino is coming out with a podcast, and I think that is probably, and he's also writing film books. He's supposed to come out with a film book later this year. I feel like Quentin Tarantino doing a movie podcast would be awesome for anyone that loves movies, but it would be great just for movies in general. And I'll get to that in a second. So essentially, it's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery, who was his co-writer on Pulp Fiction, are launching a podcast called the Video Archives Podcast, which is, Tarantino grew up in California. He worked at the Video Archives store there. And that was kind of where he was always watching movies, but that was kind of where he practiced interacting with patrons, recommending movies, kind of really upped his movie knowledge. So that was just where he worked. So that's why it's called that. And that's, if you ever listen to Tarantino talk, he very much prides himself on having this encyclopedic knowledge about movies. Knowing, now talk to most people about the big movies. You hear about writer, you hear about director, maybe producers, and then you hear about the actors, the main actors. But hearing Tarantino talk, he talks movies from any era up until the 90s, maybe early 2000s. He's able to give you writer, director, producer, people on the crew, people throughout the entire industry at almost any level, the socialites within Hollywood, like able to actually talk about them, talk about the relationships between people throughout the industry and how they kind of connect with people. Just his knowledge of not just movies, but the actual industry, and not just the professional technical stuff, but kind of just the social things that get business, going. He knows all about that type of stuff. He can go on and on. And I would also recommend, if you want to hear a little bit of this, listen on Netflix. If you look up, just type in like Tarantino 1979. It's an hour and 10 minutes, essentially a podcast episode where he took notes of every movie that he was watching, and he breaks down every movie that he saw in the year of 1979. So you get stuff in there like Alien. He saw like a screening of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. But then you get these movies I've never even heard of before. He'll talk about some obscure little Disney movie, and he'll talk about it for 10 minutes. And he just has this way of talking about movies that is just so, the joy is infectious in the way that he talks about stories, themes, production, in a way, like that when you have a friend or you have someone that recommends something to you, that just the way that they recommended it gets you so excited that you just have to watch it. He has that. And he has that in a way that I've never come across anyone else. Like Roger Ebert kind of had that a little bit. I mean, he definitely had that, but just not to the level that Tarantino does. And you have, especially, and I saw this a lot when living in LA for like 7 months. There are so many people in the industry that don't really love movies. They like movies, they enjoy them. Maybe they, get into it because they're good at the technical side. But Tarantino has this very distinct love of movies. Like you can tell that the only thing he wants to do more than make movies is to watch and study movies. And I would say, really, when you have the time, if you have a podcast that you have not, if you don't have any podcasts, look up just Tarantino talking movies. His breakdown of There Will Be Blood is fantastic. His breakdown of Joker is great. He's got a breakdown of Top Gun, which is very cool. He talks about things like, there's the video of him breaking down how Rocky was pivotal, not just within the culture in America, but how it was pivotal in terms of the film industry and how people realized the way they needed to be telling stories, that it was okay for movies to going on be uplifting, but it has to be uplifting in a very realistic way. And he talks about how, like, in the 70s, everything was depressing, everything was sad, and why it was like that, and how different movies kind of came along and changed that, and how different movies made studios realize what they can get away with in movies. He's a fascinating character to listen to when he talks about film. And I think that I would love to see the podcast, capture that, and then also be a huge success, because I think that is something that's definitely missing in terms of movies in particular. Like TV dominates because it's so accessible. We have so much of it. You can kind of devour it for a month. You don't have to necessarily, with a movie, there's a little bit of a risk. I'm gonna watch one movie tonight. It's gonna be 2 hours, and if it sucks, and that's all I have. Like, if I have a halfway okay TV show, then I can hang out with these characters for a month or 2 months if I want to. Like, it's not so much of a risk, but he gives fun to the idea of just being with a movie, whether it's good or bad, just kind of finding things to love in it. So if he brings that to a podcast and the podcast becomes successful, I think that could be great in terms of people kind of embracing movies again as as an exciting way of entertaining yourself, because it has, I think, more to offer than we get from TV. But I do get, especially with the way that our culture is right now, it's not as easy for people to engage with that. Hopefully that'd be a fun way to people to kind of rediscover what is so awesome about movies. The Hobbit says, I want Tarantino to review 80s Hong Kong action movies. That'd be great. And like, in terms of the way that they talk about this, it really sounds like it's going to be that type of a thing where they just kind of pull out old, obscure movies more than anything else, but movies that were popular, not like art house movies. Like taking, like how something like, if you remember the movie Underwater that came out with Kristen Stewart, like, we're probably not going to remember that movie in 10 years, but it was a big movie that had appeal. And, it was not just a small art house movie. It seems like he's going to be talking about movies like that, movies that kind of, a blast from the past, and it kind of opens up more about the culture, more about the movie itself. I mean, I guess if you're the type of person that loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood just because it had, nothing but behind the scenes stuff of the culture of Hollywood, the culture of movie making, and the importance of it, then it seems like that's what this is going to be about. I'm sorry to Hobbits. Kaganada. I know I've not seen any of his videos, but I know what you're talking about. Is great when he talks about film too. I have not watched any of his stuff. Isn't that the same person who made the movie Columbus and After Yang that's out right now? I have not seen any of his stuff, but I know that he's a very big deal in the film criticism world. There's also Every Frame of Painting. If you've not watched that one, Every Frame of Painting is fantastic in terms of breaking down visually how movies operate, what does work, what doesn't work. Every Frame of Painting is awesome with just kind of realizing how much you are tuned, how movies and editing in particular is inherent in terms of how we perceive things. Like there's some things you can mess with and experiment with, but there's some stuff that somehow it's very strange. It's just kind of baked into us in terms of what we understand. Like some of it is learned by watching movies, but some of it just some things will work and some things just will not work. Every Frame of Painting is another awesome one. I didn't see that. David Fincher came out with, I forget the name, Voyeur on Netflix, which was kind of like a film essay way of exploring how people fell in love with movies, a bunch of different creatives. So that's one to check out. That one, I saw a little bit of one of the episodes, and that one seemed pretty cool. Won't spend too long on this next one, but Louis C.K. is coming out with a movie called 4th of July. It is, well, again, I won't spend long on this. The trailer came out today. It looks funny. You can definitely tell that Louis C.K. does not have the resources that he had whenever he was making his show. But I think Louis is absolutely hilarious. I would highly recommend checking out the trailer to that. Also, the main actor in the movie, Joe List, hilarious comedian who's got another great movie podcast. That looks very cool. I don't think there's any angle really to come out with that other than I personally hope that Louis, does a good job. Hopefully he comes back and is able to have some type of career because I think he's very funny. Okay, getting more into the review stuff. So I'll talk a little bit before closing out today about Top Gun Maverick, about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and about The Offer on Paramount, the behind the scenes of the Godfather show. So right now I'm a little bit behind on The Offer, but I was worried going into it because The Godfather is obviously an epochal movie. Like you cannot really, it seems a little bit trite to just kind of go into the behind the scenes, making a TV show about it, especially from Paramount. It feels a little bit like cannibalizing your own property. But I will say I'm about 3 episodes in, and it's very entertaining. There's a lot of grandstanding that I honestly don't have that big of a problem with, but I would definitely recommend it to people. If you like The Godfather, then and you like movies or behind the scenes stories, give it a chance, check it out. I would definitely recommend it. I think that it's good. There's a little bit of cheese. A few years ago, I probably would have hated it because of the amount of cheese. But honestly, I think it fits. I think it fits when you're dealing with these high-ranking Hollywood executives. So it's fun. I always love, the vintage 70s shit. So I'm full on there for that. I think that's very cool. But yeah, if you have not seen it, I would say that it is definitely worth a temporary subscription. If you can do the free trial and get in and out real fast and watch the whole thing before having to pay, I would definitely recommend it. Okay, Top Gun Maverick. Top Gun Maverick, I'll do like a full review later, but it is fantastic. After seeing it, and I'm definitely going to go back and see it. If you can see it in IMAX, see it in IMAX, see it on the biggest screen possible. It feels a lot like Dunkirk to me in terms of it's nowhere near that great. Like that's another one. Watch Tarantino's video where he breaks down Dunkirk. But the way that the movie pulls you in and takes you on this huge spectacle, this huge ride. Like the thing really does feel like a ride, not in the way that Scorsese talks about Marvel movies being a ride, but the way that the characters and the elements themselves being up there in the planes, those scenes, the way that it really just grabs you by the balls and just you get very scared. I found the thing very scary, just very intimidating. Most of the scenes, like it does have that type of thing where whenever something comes to a conclusion, you just kind of have a sigh of relief and you realize, holy shit, was I really that tense throughout that entire thing? Like that at no point did I actually think that I was like almost sweating throughout this entire thing. It's a very, very impressive movie. On one side, yes, it's impressive because it is. I've seen some reviews say, oh, it's by the books in terms of this, in terms of character, in terms of story. And it is. You have these by the book things about his relationship with the woman, the way that he's kind of called back into Top Gun. You've got the one character, like you've got the you've got the Ed Harris character, kind of the, strong, silent type of male army character who's like, oh, you're not the future and all this stuff. You're an arrogant piece of crap. Like, what do you have those in there, but honestly, and people are using it as a criticism. I don't think that that's fair. The movie, I think we so rarely have movies that put forward just regular story beats, story tropes in a way that is successful. I think too many movies try to reinvent the wheel whenever, to a degree, you really just need to get a few things right. Get the inciting incident done correctly, kind of open up with a very interesting way of introducing where the character is now or where the character is if it's a brand new story. Have a good villain. Have, just have it, like, it has all of these in a way that does not feel like, you could call it generic if you want to be cheaply cynical, but I don't think that that's fair. It does the stuff that a story needs to do very, very well, and it will ring familiar, but honestly, not even in a way that feels like full nostalgia. I think it just does a very good job of giving you what you need on the story side. But when it comes to the aerial sequences, it is insane how innovative they were able to actually be with filming some of this stuff. Like those IMAX cameras, it were clearly in the cockpit with these actors as they are just zooming by at I don't know how many G's. It is insane, some of the sequences that they're able to create with this stuff. Not even some of that, some of the sequences that they get, like at the beginning, there is a shot, like I will say, just the first 20 minutes alone are fantastic and worth this thing being nominated for Best Picture. But the way that and you can see this in the trailer, this aircraft just zooms past Ed Harris, and the roof of this shed just flies up and just hit, like, in it that fully happened. It's a commitment to having everything done in camera, and that translates in a way that is so important, in a way that seems so lost in so many movies. And that's why I was so upset about the whole Alec Baldwin gun thing, where everyone's like, oh, we need to use fake weapons. He's like, no, you just need to be safe. And you need to have like as much of reality in the shot as possible, because this is an example of a movie where it makes a huge difference. Those actors being in those planes makes a huge difference. And and it's so strange that we haven't gotten more movies that do this type of thing. But as a producer, as like, this is full on Tom Cruise's movie. He's the main character, he is the producer, and the way people talk about him now, it seems like he is the director in a lot of ways. Like, while reading an article actually yesterday about this, it seems like he picked up a lot of stuff from working on Eyes Wide Shut with Stanley Kubrick. Just like he has got his claws in the movies that he makes, and he is very good at it. He is very good at delivering a story in a way that really, really gets under your skin in a very good way. Like, he's just making very strong films right now, and this is absolutely one of them. It is. That's why, yes, there's nostalgia in it. There's some stuff that you could call generic, but I don't think that's true. I think that it is a very solid story that delivers with just a huge amount of spectacle that is on the level of Dunkirk. I think Dunkirk does do it better, and is actually, the story does a good job at trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to telling a story visually. But this one does go watch it. Go watch it on the biggest screen. You're not going to regret it. Like, people were hooping and hollering in the theater that I was in, and it was just great to see a packed out screening of something that was not Marvel for a change. It was great. It was great to experience, and everyone needs to check it out. The Hobbit says, I agree with you, Critic, about Top Gun Mav, but Top Gun Mav played it too safe. The movie never took a risk. Yeah, that in terms of the story, it did not. And there was some stuff, in particular in the last act, there was some moments in it where even I was like, okay, this is like, I'm happy that we're here. I'm happy that there's something that is doing this. And I agree with you. There are points where you would have liked to see some more risk taking with the story. And maybe looking back on it in 10 years, it will look like, hey, these were the shortcomings of Top Gun and all, that very well is possible. I just think right now, at this level, in terms of a blockbuster movie, I think people are so starved for any reason to go to the theater that even without that, though, as the context, I think that Top Gun does a great job of surpassing people's expectations. I also would have loved for them to take a few more risks in some areas, especially whenever the snow starts getting involved. I'll say that whenever Tom Cruise is actually in the snow. But I guess I'm not able to get too upset about it not taking more risks, especially when visually it did so much that people don't really seem to want to do when it comes to actually filming a movie. Okay, I will say, when it comes to playing it safe, we can talk a little about Obi-Wan here before closing out. Right now, and I need to see, I've been watching with my girlfriend, and she has been giving me shit because she does not like Star Wars, and I'm trying to kind of talk us into like, hey, let's keep watching it because I do want to watch till the end. But she's like, this show is total crap. And I have to agree, this show is absolute. It's not good. It's not. I've got it pulled up on IMDb right now. It's got a 7.9 in terms of the ratings. It's weird with Star Wars. I was never really I was not a Star Wars kid. I didn't watch and this was like, my dad loves Star Wars. He did not really show it to us as a kid. But I just wasn't very interested in Star Wars. So I wasn't interested in Star Trek either. Like I always loved sci-fi, but I did not really like the space opera sci-fi. So I am not someone that when it comes to, the Star Wars stories, I'm full on into the nostalgia of it. When I was around 12, I saw Revenge of the Sith is the first one, then went to 4, 5, 6, and then went back and saw the prequels. So like there is some nostalgia there, but it's not like, ingrained in me that it is with the people that are religious about Star Wars. And I'm saying that just because there are so many people that feel like they talk about the new Star Wars stuff and they say, oh, it's not like it used to be. Like you can feel that they're just upset that the nostalgia isn't hitting the way that it only can when you're a kid. So that is not part of my issue with this. I just feel like, and even though it's a kid's show, it still doesn't feel like it's hitting any of the beats of a story. It feels like it is running so off of nostalgia, so off of the character of Obi-Wan, the specter and the mystery of Darth Vader. There's nothing in this story that feels very much like a story. This feels very much like a corporation mining more material. And I think as a sign of that is that every single one of these Lucas characters, look at Luke Skywalker, look at Obi-Wan Kenobi. When you meet these older characters, meet Han, when you see Han Solo, although it fit more for him, they are just these kind of like, oh, I've lost my way. It's been so long. I'm so weak. Although Luke gave up on the Force, he gave up on everything, and he still had Force powers. But we find Obi-Wan Kenobi after a decade, and he's like lost almost all of his powers. It feels like the type of thing where there's so many plot holes in this show. It is directed so poorly. The way that, like in the first episode, you had the Leia chase. In the second episode, you had the droid on the roof that was shooting at Obi-Wan. But then when Obi-Wan had to use the Force, it was like, oh, never mind. We don't actually need to use the Force. I'm going to can you get rid of this person? We will put that user in timeout because we don't need to find anything out about whatever they're offering us. Here, sorry, let me pull up. We don't. Yeah, it feels like it is giving lip service purely to the fans without wanting to actually do a lot of work in terms of building a story. All the characters very conveniently say exactly the information that needs to be given at that one moment. Fantastic. Every single villain in every single scene addresses either their peers or everyone in the show that's against them. This is your motive. This is why you're thinking. How in the world could you have disobeyed me? Your desire to defeat Obi-Wan is blinding your judgment. And it's like, you said that 5 minutes ago, dude. Like, yes, we get it. We understand. It's just, the acting feels very stale. The design does not have, like, say what you want about the prequels, but man, when George Lucas was kind of at the helm of these, you did have what felt like new designs coming out. Everything in Star Wars now feels very generic. We're always on sand planets. Why are we constantly on these damn sand planets on no matter what story it is you're watching? It feels a lot like there are people that have bought in fully to Star Wars. They did a long time ago, and anything that comes out to Star Wars, anything that kind of expands the lore, is very religious almost. If you go up to someone and you go like, oh, so here's the thing, like, I'm not really a creationist, and I think that it's, science doesn't really bode that creationists, they'll be like, how dare you? How dare you? Star Wars is very much the same thing. You got to be like, it's just a little lame the way that these characters don't. How could you? First of all, like with the Leia chase scene, there was a whole thing on TikTok. A bunch of people were saying, here's the thing. The Leia chase scene is perfectly fine because the reason they can't catch Leia is because the Force works in mysterious ways, as Yoda said in Episode 1, and it protects people in ways that confuse people around them. And that's what was going on. It's like, come on, admit when something's poorly made. It's just Obi-Wan feels cheaper than The Mandalorian. It does not feel like everyone is putting their best foot forward. It does not feel like Ewan McGregor is putting his best foot forward. And I love Ewan McGregor. Like, that's part of the reason I'm watching this, is that I think he's a great actor. I will watch pretty much anything that he's in. So that is why I'm watching this. I hope it gets better. I really do. This just feels like this doesn't feel like a story that needs to be told. And, if that changes later, then that's fine. Another example. In the last episode, Darth Vader pushed Obi-Wan into the fires and says, "Your suffering has just begun." First of all, he's barely hurting the guy, it seems. Like, when he gets out of the fire, it's like nothing really happened to him. And then the way that Obi-Wan gets away, it's just filmed in the stupidest way ever. Like, on a story side, it doesn't really make sense because Darth Vader could have just taken him with him. I know that people are saying, hey, well, he's just wanting to he's manipulating him. He's kind of psychologically crippling him because he knows he'll catch him again. It's like, okay, I mean, sure. I mean, the show doesn't really say that. That's not really the emotions that are being given with the music or anything like that. Like, it is being told as, oh, they got away. It is not a Darth Vader's plan is going the way that he wants it to. But even the way that they do get away, it's like, oh, let's walk over here. And then they just kind of fall over a sand dune. It's like, did they get away from that? Is that it? Like, are they really just letting them go? That's what they're doing? Like, it feels stupid. The Star Wars apologists are just very, very annoying because when you watch it, it feels like it doesn't work, but people want it to work so bad. It just doesn't. Okay. The Hobbit says, I'm glad Tom Cruise was not written like he lost his way. He is not weak. I guess he is not weak in Top Gun Maverick. No, Tom Cruise's character is very good. He's what? He opens up leading this almost space-like program. It's very cool. I like Top Gun Maverick a lot. So thank y'all very much for watching. Feel free to share, all of that fun stuff, and be sure to be back here next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and also subscribe to 5 Minute Critic for future updates on reviews and movie news.